That is James Mennie. He is over at the Montreal Gazette. So, Jim, I had Luc Rabouin here about an hour or so ago talking about a lot of different... Jim?
Yes, I'm there. I'm
Why
just
are you
giggling.
laughing?
I'm just a naturally jolly fellow.
All right, we talked about a lot of things. I try to cover as much as I could, including the announcement today of his decision to hire, I guess it's a person who would be responsible for all the work or coordinating all the work that gets done around the city. And I pointed out, I thought fairly, we've heard this before. We heard this from Valérie Plante. She was going to get rid of all this stuff. There'd be a squad, and it never really happened. So what did you take? What did you from the interview?
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because I was going to ask you if, as Monsieur Rabouin was explaining this whole, centralized construction site control office, whether the clock radio hit 6 o'clock and Sonny and Cher began singing "I Got You, Babe," because it really sounds like a scene from Groundhog Day, Aaron. I mean, this is, as you say, and not just Valérie Plante. This goes back to the dim past, the days of Gerald Tremblay, how we knew. But what I love, and what made me giggle when you're talking about Luc Rabouin, I like with a guy who can come up with a straight face saying, listen, we're not going to be able to get rid of the construction sites, and maybe we'll try and coordinate them. But you know what? We know what's really bothering you. It's those orange cones. So we're going to replace those orange cones with shorter little bollards. So that way, I'm sure you'll be happy as a clam, and order will have been brought to the chaos that has been surrounding road construction in Montreal. And it's so funny, Aaron, because as this interview was taking place, as Monsieur Rabouin was making his comments, 24 hours before, our own Rick Lechner has published an op-ed in the Gazette saying, we got to do something. It's time to stop fooling around. There's all kinds of things we could be doing. There are all kinds of examples elsewhere in the world. And I tell you, I read that piece from top to bottom, Aaron, and eliminating orange cones was not on his list. But that said, this seems to be where we are. I think there's an acknowledgement that at bottom we are not going to be able to change things. And don't forget, I mean, the city, it's terrible, all these construction sites. The city's making one of the few sources of revenue outside of property taxes is they're selling permits for this construction. So it's a source of revenue. So they're not going to be too jaundiced and looking at all these requests for construction. That said, I just love the fact that, maybe we can't change the problem, but we can maybe eliminate the most visual aspect of the problem. If that is the theme of Projet Montreal's election platform, Aaron, I don't know. I'm not betting on those guys on November 2nd.
So I also asked, because it's kind of incumbent on me to have asked, about Cavendish. God knows we've talked about it enough times. I played the little. I played the clip of Valérie Plante going, we're doing Cavendish for sure. And when I asked for something, I didn't get a whole lot back other, Jim, than him saying, well, there's trains there, and it would be very expensive, and we're looking at this. And as he said, it could be either an overpass or an underpass, to which I wanted to say, I think we're pretty good at building overpasses and underpasses. So I'm not sure why this would be a big issue, but no answer there.
No, because you're talking about bringing cars into the city, Aaron. You should know better. And you, of all people, should know better. The fact is, and it's true. There are people. I know people in Projet Montréal. There are some people out there who have a clue, who understand that they're running a city. But the fact of the matter is that cliche, that Projet Montréal is nothing more than this anti-car cabal, and that everything else is subsidiary. Every other consideration is subsidiary to that. I'm very sorry. It's true. And I wish it wasn't. I wish that we had, that for 2 terms, Montrealers voted for a political party that was essentially a one-trick pony, but here we are. And I think that if there's any lesson we should be drawing from that experience and in anticipation of the next election is, don't make the same mistake again. I know it's easy to have people come on and say, I'm not Projet Montréal. I'm going to get rid of, bicycle passes. No. Don't bet the farm on that. Get the full picture, get the full package, because honestly, one-issue parties are killing, are in the process of killing this city. We have the proof with Projet Montréal. And we had a taste of it as well. I'm very sorry, even during the one term of Denis Coderre, who basically got elected on the strength that, it's enough. I'm going to cut this and cut that and do whatever. But in the end, nothing actually happened. You've got to ante up. This is the second largest city in Canada, and we're in huge trouble. and the whole area is in huge trouble. So you know what? Grow up. Stop with the nonsense. Stop with this little cosmetic. We'll get rid of the cones. Do something. And don't tell me it's coming down the road or we're going to have consultations. Show me the plan. Tell me what date it begins. And that goes for any of the other candidates as well. And if Montrealers aren't putting their foot down on that particular issue, I think they deserve whatever happens to them.
By the way, speaking of consultations, I brought that up too, right? When we talked about Camille Hood, and the answer was, there were differing opinions in the consultation. That was his answer to why the city chose to ignore what a majority of Montrealers wanted and decided to do what they wanted.
Aaron, I hate to say it though. I mean, obviously on the show as well. We talked about parking and bicycle paths and the lack of organization. There's the number one issue facing the city of Montreal, and it's the one that all the candidates will try and weasel out of by saying, "Well, it's Quebec," and it's not. Is the growing issue of the exponentially growing issue of homelessness in Montreal? It affects every single aspect of city services, of quality of life, of health, of safety, of everything you want to name. And until I think the electorate holds all the candidates' feet to the fire and really insists on a straight-up plan, and not the idea that we're just going to toss the file to Quebec, this cannot go on. I've been covering this story for 20 years, and even back then, the issue was, a lot of people were coming back to downtown. They were buying houses, and they were doing residential developments, and the problem was, and even back then, previous administrations, the idea of dealing with homelessness is basically packing it up and moving it to another neighborhood until they complain and they move it someplace else. It's rather like the approach of saying, you don't like, construction sites? We'll get rid of the orange cones. Enough with the frosting. Give us some cake. This has gone on for far too long, Aaron.
By the way, he also pointed out, and I think this is something we ignore sometimes, this is not just now a Montreal problem, right? By virtue of what you said, Jim, exponential growth, this is happening in various places across the province.
All the more reason for it to be attacked, in one of the biggest theaters of it. And I'll tell you something else, okay? I usually don't have a problem with Valerie Plante. I know she bugs some people. I've never had a problem with her. But I tell you, when Valerie Plante said, we have to learn to coexist with the homeless in Montreal, I think if any politician turns around and says you should learn to coexist with a problem you hired me to solve, I think that politician should learn to coexist with unemployment.
Okay. Well said. Let me talk about what's happening. We had our big cabinet shuffle yesterday. Here it is a day later. Did I hear Francois Legault come out today and apologize for having spent all that money to bring the LA Kings to Quebec?
He's doing the Mea Culpa tour. He was on with Radcan this morning, which is where you heard that. Well, maybe it wasn't a good idea because if people thought we shouldn't be spending that money. And then he went over to TV, and he was saying, maybe it wasn't a good idea to have all those pictograms explaining the third link. It's almost as if he's in the I'm sorry, not sorry tour because he's Francois Legault. And he's trying to perhaps present a softer edge or softer side to Quebecers before he comes down like an Old Testament act of God after September 30th, talking about austerity, talking about, really grabbing the province by the shoulders and shaking it, even though Francois Legault and company are 99.9% responsible for the administrative and economic torpor that has just reigned on this province for the past 8 years. Simply because, as I say, these people don't know what they're doing, and they did whatever they wanted, and now it's all coming home to roost. So, I mean, we'll see how this is going to play out. I think, though, what I find really concerning is I'm not saying they're completely silent, Aaron, but when you consider the shape that the CAQ is in right now, that Legault is in right now, why am I not hearing like 8,000% more from all of the opposition parties? The PQ, obviously. They have the whip hand certainly in the polls. I'm hearing a fair amount from that. Nowhere near as much as far as I'm concerned for the Liberals. Are they waiting for the right moment to strike, Aaron? Because honestly, October of 2026 might be a tad too late. But all that said, I'm going to be really, really keep my ear to the ground to see what these people have to say. I think this is the CAQ government and its inability to get anything done is a target-rich environment for opposition parties. And I think if you're going to make your bones in October, if you're going to win that election, now is the time to start. Now is the time to start staking out your territory and making it clear that when Francois Legault says something about one particular dossier, that you, not the head of the other party, but you are the one that reporters come and see first and ask their questions to.
Last thing I want to bring up, I started the show today by talking about the city, of course, deciding to name 5 of those metro stops along the Blue Line after a variety of either famous people or famous events. And I don't understand this. And I know French media has kind of come out scratching their heads on this as well. What's your take on that?
Listen, I don't. Well, I guess the rationale was to be, to do all the virtue signaling that they can. Yeah. I remember, remember the controversy over Lionel Groux, or as I like to call him, Lionel Grouch, the Metro, and it's like, no, you can't name the station after this guy. He had anti-Semitic views, and they said, well, no, it's not about that. It's about where the street is called Lionel Groux, so we got to call the station that. Why was that dogged policy not applied here? Even if you turned around and called it whatever dash, wherever the hell the station is, whatever woman's name it was that you had like a little dash, like a Square Victoria dash IKEA, which is another sort of like travesty as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, it really seems they dropped the ball on that. But then again, Madame Plante is limping and quacking, so maybe she doesn't care what she has to say. And maybe because Projet Montréal was too distracted trying to figure out what they're going to do with all those orange cones, they didn't think about that.
That's what it was. They were struck by the orange cone situation, of course. Yeah. Jim, thank you.
Matt.